Today, we're diving into the life of a man who was, well, a little bit of everything. A poet, a philosopher, a composer, oh, and the guy who wrote the national anthems for 2 different countries. This is the story of Rabindranath Tagore. I mean, really, what if one person gave the world not just incredible poetry, not just timeless music, but also wrote the national anthems for 2 separate nations? It sounds almost impossible, right? Like something out of a legend. But nope, it's the real deal. At his heart, he was a poet. But we're not talking about complicated verses that only a few people could understand. His words were for everyone. They crossed oceans and they spanned generations, all to connect us. But he was also a deep thinker, a philosopher. This was a man who wasn't afraid to tackle the really big questions, about freedom, about who we are. His ideas didn't just shake things up back then. They're still making us think today. And maybe most importantly, he was a visionary. He looked at the world and saw a future where we were all connected, not split apart by lines on a map. So the big question is, how did one person become all of this? Let's get into it. Okay, so first up, to really get Tagore, we have to understand what made him tick. What were the big ideas that fueled his entire journey? Because if you want to understand his art, you've got to understand the man behind it. This right here, this quote is everything. For him, real freedom wasn't about politics or governments. It was an inside job. It was about freeing your mind, your spirit. He argued that what connects us as human beings is way, way more important than any border. And honestly, if you get this one idea, you've got the key to his entire life's work. So where did a worldview like that even come from? Well, that brings us to how a poet is born. We're going to see how a kid who absolutely could not stand school ended up becoming a global literary icon. Let's set the scene. It's 1861, Calcutta. Tagore is born into this incredible family, just buzzing with art and ideas. But here's the twist. He hated formal school. Hated it. He felt like classrooms were just cages for the mind. So he learned his own way, from nature, from books, from life itself. And that little bit of rebellion gave him the space to find his own voice, leading him to create his masterpiece, Gitanjali, in 1910. And Gitanjali wasn't just another book of poems. It was the spark that started a global fire. This is where Tagore becomes a voice for the entire world. We're going to see how his words just exploded onto the international stage. Okay, just stop and think about this for a second. In 1913, only 3 years after Gitanjali was published, Tagore wins the Nobel Prize in Literature. But he wasn't just another winner. He was the very first person from Asia, the first non-European to ever receive it. This was huge. It wasn't just an award. It was a massive cultural shift. So why did his work have such a powerful impact? It's simple, really. He wrote about the stuff that connects all of us, no matter where we're from. Love, loss, social injustice, the classic battle between tradition and new ideas. He was basically inviting the whole world to take a closer look at what it means to be human. But here's the thing about Tagore. You couldn't box him in. His creativity couldn't be contained in books. No way. It spilled out into music, and even into his radical ideas about education. Get this. The man composed over 2,000 songs. It's a staggering number, but among them are 2 that are just incredible. Jana Gana Mana, the national anthem of India, and Amar Soner Bangla, the national anthem of Bangladesh. Yep, both of them, written by the same guy. 1 composer, 2 nations. That's an achievement that has literally never been matched. And he took that same idea of unity and brought it straight into education. This quote perfectly captures his vision for the school he founded, Santiniketan. He wanted to create a place for learning that wasn't trapped by walls and a bunch of strict rules. The Santiniketan method was totally revolutionary. First off, get outside. Classes were held under the open sky because he believed learning should happen in nature. Second, make it creative. Education was all about art, music, and real conversation. And third, the most important part, free the mind. The goal wasn't to memorize facts for a test, it was to spark genuine curiosity. Now, this powerful belief in freedom and unity was bound to clash with one of the biggest forces of the 20th century, nationalism. And that's where things get really interesting. We're going to dive into his brave and pretty controversial idea of putting humanity before nation. Look, Tagore was a patriot. He loved his country. But he was a fierce critic of what he called blind nationalism. He saw it as a dangerous path, one that focuses on power and pride, instead of compassion and people. His alternative? A kind of global humanism built on wisdom and unity. And in a world that feels more divided every day, that message is more urgent than ever.
His views on nationalism even led to some respectful disagreements with his friend Mahatma Gandhi. Their admiration for each other was immense. Gandhi called Tagore Gurudev, or divine teacher, while Tagore gave Gandhi the title Mahatma, or great soul. So while they debated the best path for India, they were united in that dream of a free and just nation. So after all that, what's the big takeaway? What is Tagore's lasting legacy? Let's wrap things up by looking at why his voice is still so vital in the 21st century.
Tagore passed away in 1941, but his work is more alive than ever. His poems are still recited, his songs are still sung, and his warnings about nationalism, well, they echo in our headlines every single day. He wasn't just a product of his era. He was and is a voice for all of humanity.
And that leaves us with this final thought. In our modern world, which so often seems defined by division and walls, what can we truly learn from a man who dedicated his entire life to build bridges, through art, through education, and through a powerful belief in our common humanity?